Let's do a metaphysics warm-up. So where does it, and by it here I mean metaphysics, where does it fit in philosophy? A philosophy is an answer to the following questions. What exists? How do I know it? And what should I do? And we can divide these questions into three and give them subdisciplines: metaphysics, epistemology, and ethics. And if philosophy is an answer to these three questions, then everyone must have good or bad answers to these questions. So everyone has a philosophy. So your aunt has a philosophy. The schmuck down the street that's never been to university has a philosophy. Everyone has a philosophy. And by that I mean everyone has some sort of answer, articulate or inarticulate as the case may be, verbalized or not verbalized as the case may be, to the following question: what exists, how do I know it, and what should I do? We philosophers ask variations of those questions, and we divide our labor. So we say, well, the metaphysicians are going to answer these questions or investigate those questions, and the epistemologists will investigate these questions, and so on, right? And notice the structure here. The structure is one of subsumption. They're not like you go to some buffet, right? You can have a buffet where all the dishes are side by side, right? This is one possible way of having a logical relation. Everything is side by side. That is not what's going on here. The relation is one of containment. That's a very different kind of logical relation that we're putting in front of ourselves right now. And that's important, right? This relation of subsumption you might illustrate as a bunch of like Tupperware containers and so on, right? Like if I lift this outermost container, suppose I grab this glass container as it currently is represented. If I pick up the outer glass container, I've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3. How many glass containers am I thereby picking up if I pick up the outer one based on this picture? 4. You're exactly right. And conversely, if I pick up this glass container, how many glass containers do I thereby pick up? 1. That's right. So there's an asymmetry there, right? The inner one doesn't commit you to the outer ones, but the outer one commits you to whatever is inside. So transitively, if you take the outer one, the outermost one, you thereby pick up this one, which commits you to picking up this one, which commits you to picking up this one, and so on, right? Well, you can think of the philosophy branches, the basic, most fundamental branches of philosophy as related in this manner. What exists is the most fundamental branch of philosophy. Metaphysics, what we're doing, that's it. And it's independent of questions in epistemology and questions in ethics. So let me give you an example, a concrete example of what that could look like. Let's imagine, for instance, let's put over here nuclear energy. Do we agree, and type agree if you agree, that nuclear energy pre-existed its discovery? That before people discovered nuclear energy existed? Type agree if you agree with that. Like nuclear energy was a thing, right, before it got discovered. Yeah, okay, cool. So look, the world goes on just fine without being known, right? That means you don't have to worry about how do I know it, because there's a bunch of stuff that exists that you don't know about, and that's like fine. So you can pick up this container and the hell with the questions of knowledge. You don't even need a knower. Like nuclear energy existed before knowers were even a thing. Like if you go back in the history of the universe, right? Let's say at least on this earth, you know, you go back enough number of billions of years, there's no knowers. There's nothing resembling even remotely something like a knower. There's nothing alive. Nuclear energy is doing just fine. It exists just fine without that. However, there comes a point when, you know, through a lot of arduous scientific effort, people know, right, that nuclear energy exists, right? And you say, I know that nuclear energy exists, right? And nuclear, and let me just put this, exists, right? All right. So additionally, now you can sort of get to another layer where you know that nuclear energy exists. And of course, now I'll be asking like, okay, fine, how, right? And the answer to that question is probably like natural science, right? So I discovered that nuclear energy exists in virtue of the following, and then you give a history of ideas to sort of retrace how that came about. But then now all of a sudden you know that nuclear energy exists. And notice, you can't know something without knowing something, right? Like you can't just say, I know. Well, you know what? That's kind of the Deepak Chopra nonsense, right? It's like, I know. Know what, right? it's directed at something. Your knowledge is about something, and it's about whatever is this thing out there that exists that you're knowing, right? Now, notice once again, if you've picked up the inner box, you don't have to pick up the second one of epistemology. If you pick up this one, as I've just said a moment ago, to know is to know something. So if you know that nuclear energy exists, then that presupposes that there's a nuclear energy out there knowing, waiting to be known, right? So you thereby pick up the inner one. But nothing in picking up the epistemology Tiffin box, right? I'm picking up now the middle ones, right? In between the smallest and the largest. Nothing about picking that up commits you to answering questions in ethics. Like, for instance, if there is nuclear energy, metaphysical claim, and I know that there exists nuclear energy, epistemological claim, nothing in that knowledge and that existence tells me what to do about it. It still completely remains an open question what you should do with it. You don't even have to address that question. So, for instance, if you read a physics textbook, the physics textbook is not going to tell you what to do with nuclear energy, because that's the question of ethics, right? What should I do? And it's an open question. There's lots of things you could do with nuclear energy. Like you could, I don't know, you could do, should I, let me write this as a question, right? Should I use it for weapons, right? Energy, or here's three options, or not use it, right? Or not use it. And that's an open question, right? Should I use it for weapons, energy, or not use it? Those are three big options. And notice that if I ask this question, this ethical question, what am I presupposing? I'm presupposing that there's this thing called nuclear energy and that I know about it. In order to confront a fork in the road, you have to know that there's two horns to the fork in the road, and you have to, they actually have to be there. So if you pick up the ethics box, you thereby pick up the epistemology box, which thereby picks up the metaphysics box, right? But the questions of ethics are not reducible to mere matters of knowledge, because it's not like reading more about nuclear energy in a physics textbook is going to tell you how to use it. Do we agree? Like if I buy physics textbooks at the bookstore at KPU and I learn all about physics, nothing in there tells me whether I should use it as a weapon, as a source of energy, or not use it at all. Do we agree? Nothing in a physics textbook tells me that. And I know that sounds silly to say, but it's important. No amount of facts is going to settle a question about values and how you ought to act, right? However, it's not like they're wholly divorced. The relation of subsumption is such that questions of values presuppose knowledge of options, which presuppose options. Let me say that again because it's really, really important, right? Questions about what to do presuppose knowledge of certain options, and that those options that you know about actually exist, right? Let me give you another example now, right? Here's another example. This one's going to hit close to home. Well, not necessarily our home, but let's just ask it. And again, I don't want to get into this debate, but it's a thing. Metaphysically, I see this little fleshy thing, and I can ask, is a fetus a person? If I ask this question, I'm asking a metaphysical question. Now, your emotions are going to tell you one way or the other. That's terrific, but who the hell cares about your emotions? Let's say a person says yes, excuse me, and let's say a person says no. Oh, well, fair enough, man. What, do you have a fetus detector in your emotions as well? Obviously, the next question is going to be, well, how do you know it? It's like, how the hell do you know? So someone tells you really confidently, like, yes, it is a person. Okay, I understand that you put an exclamation mark, but how do you know? And likewise, if someone says no with an exclamation mark and you feel really strongly about it, okay, I understand you feel really strongly about this particular metaphysical commitment, but once again, how do you know, right? The epistemological question is crucial. It's not like the metaphysical facts are out there and they make them, if you claim access to them, you got to unpack your access. So if you say, yes, I know that they're not, well, you better unpack that access to that fact. And if you say, yes, they are a person, Well, you have to unpack that access for me, and that's going to be epistemological work for you to do, right? And you can then subscribe to a claim, which I subscribe to, and you probably subscribe to, right? That one should not kill a person. That's a claim that we can put in the ethics box, and you can agree with that. But then, is a fetus a person? That's going to make a big difference, right? Like I can clip my nails, right? I've got a nail clipper, and I can clip my nails, and I'm not too bothered by that, right? And there's a little piece of organic matter that falls off when I do it, and I don't think I'm violating this claim that I should not kill a person when I do that. It doesn't bother me one bit. But another little piece of fleshy tissue, and all of a sudden, maybe that could become a big deal. But if it is, you got a lot of work to do. And philosophy just is slowing the hell down, putting aside those emotions, using tools to sort of externalize all of our reason giving and our reason asking, and cataloging very carefully the logical relations between these various commitments. If you've never stopped to wonder about how the hell the stuff you take for granted works, you're in no position when it doesn't work to sort of figure it out, right? It's kind of like hit and miss. And philosophy just is the beginning of the realization that we're not gods. And you can quote me on that. Like that's something, if you want to put something on my tombstone, I'll say again, philosophy just is the systematic owning up to the fact that we're not gods, right? Just like, what the hell do you know? It's like, well, you have a direct line to reality itself. You got it all figured out. It's like, wow, good for you, man. Yeah. Okay, so importantly for us, because this course is not a course in epistemology, we kind of don't care, although we will when we do metaphysics. We certainly don't care about this, but we do care about what exists. What are we going to put in this Tupperware container, in this inner tiffin box, right? What exists? I don't know, right? Well, let's bloody do it. What exists? We're going to do this exercise together. It's going to be grueling. Is everyone ready for this exercise? If you're good to go, tell me good to go. Let's ask ourselves about the following. Ectoplasm, your aura, the Loch Ness Monster, God or gods, the time travel machine, and UFOs. Nah, just kidding, just kidding. That's like a laundry list of the kind of stuff I don't want to be talking about in this class for the same reason that I don't want to get into a lot of nonsense mumbo jumbo, right? So if you thought we were going to do this, you're like, yay. You're like, no, that's for YouTube. How about we focus on a bunch of ordinary stuff? So here's a bunch of ordinary stuff. A mountain, your best friend, a hammer, the number 5, yesterday, a song. All right, so let's ask. Let's take it one at a time. A mountain, let's go for that. Let's take one item off our list. There's 6 on our list. Let's do it together. Is a mountain real, not real, partly real, or it depends? What we said about nuclear energy pre-existing its discovery, why can't that apply to mountains? Like, well, the cartographers bring them into being? Yeah, cool. Like the cartographers, do we agree? The cartographers don't bring mountains into being, right? And Babjit, if you could be a simulation, what the hell does that have to do with mountains, right? We're asking about mountains, not like whatever's happening in your VR gear, right? And what's out there. If there is a mountain for you to know once you remove your VR gear, it'll be out there waiting to be known. And if there isn't, then there isn't, right? Once you lift your VR gear, do you see that? By the way, if you took philosophy of technology with me, philosophy 1201, there's this great movie that we look at called Into Eternity, and it talks about the disposal of nuclear waste. Nuclear waste is going to outlive humanity like forever. Huh? And, you know, whatever beers are going to populate the world after the ice age or whatever are going to walk over our graves, they'll be exposed to the radioactivity of our nuclear waste. Huh? It just goes on just fine without us. Okay, so we're picking up the innermost Tupperware container. We're not going to go back into the sort of standard reflexes that your profs have beaten into you. Am I a simulation, right? Because that's purely gratuitous. There's no real reason when you're investigating whether a mountain is real that you have to start thinking about whether you're a simulation. That's a product of too much schooling. That's a product of having spent too much time in university. Like, that's not the question, right? That's like someone saying, what do you want to eat for supper? And then someone veers onto this other conversation about, but how can I trust my senses? Like, I'm asking you, what do you want for supper, right? It's like, seriously, that's like you spend too much time in your books. Like, do you want a hot dog? Do you want a burger? Do you want a spaghetti? Like, what the hell do you want for supper, right? But how do I know, right? It's like, no. We want to think, it's true, critically, but we don't want to gratuitously import other gimmicks that we've learned from our elders. That's really important, right? So let me say that again, because it'll give a tenor to the conversation to try to make it productive. We want to think critically, but we want to think with a focus. Focus on what's on the board right now. That's your mandala. That's what I want you to look at. I don't want us to sort of say that's a springboard for showing off all the gimmicks we learned from the older farts that we learned from, right? That's not what we want to do. So we want to say a mountain, real, not real, partly real, it depends. Lots of folks said real. Some people said it depends. I think given everything that I've said, there's a way of fleshing out it depends that doesn't go into the gratuitous stuff. So let me just give you a sense of what we might say in defense of the view that it depends. So let's have a look. I'm gonna draw a mountain. All right, I'm gonna draw a mountain. There we go. Let's I suppose in the Rocky Mountains there's something like this. Cool. I'm gonna draw also a little schmuck. Let's put a schmuck, Mr. Schmuck, over here. Mr. Schmuck had to work real hard to get to the top of the mountain. Here's Mr. Schmuck. Mr. Schmuck is at the top of the mountain. Do we agree? Type in agree if you agree. And again, it needn't be any more sophisticated than what it is. Mr. Schmuck. Right? Is he really called Mr. Schmuck? Right? Who called him? Kripke's view on names would say that. It's like, all right, Mr. Schmuck's on the top of the mountain. Mr. Schmuck. Let's move Mr. Schmuck. Actually, let's undo Mr. Schmuck. Here we go. Let's not have some confusion. Mr. Schmuck is on the mountain. Yes or no? Mr. Schmuck is on the mountain? Say yes or no. Mr. Schmuck is on the mountain. Mr. Schmuck is on the mountain. Is Mr. Schmuck on the mountain? Yes or no? Mr. Schmuck is on the mountain. Mr. Schmuck. Is Mr. Schmuck on the mountain? Yes or no? Let's just, at this point, it's hard. Some folks are having a hard time just saying yes or no. He is, but he's just not on the top. We can stipulate. It depends on if he's on a flat ground or elevation. It depends on what you define as the mountain. All right, let's. Okay. Oh, hold on. Different mountain. Okay. Oh, here we go. Mr. Schmuck is on the mountain. Yes or no? Mr. Schmuck is on. We got lots of yeses. All right, cool. All right. Mr. Schmuck is on the mountain. Yes or no? Let's call him Schmuck 2. And let's call him Schmuck 1. A lot of people said that Mr. Schmuck is on the mountain for Schmuck 1 and Schmuck 2. All right, now comes the really rough part, right? Okay, yes, no. And now comes the part that makes this philosophy. Why? So yes, he's on the mountain. Why? Because he is above sea level. His little legs are touching the mountain. Finish your typing, and then I'll take all of those replies one by one. And we'll divorce them from whoever said that, and we'll analyze them philosophically. I'll go over every item one at a time. I'm going to now say what folks have said, but again, we're not concerned with people in this class. We're just concerned with ideas. All right. Because he is above the sea level, and there's some qualification question mark. What if I told you that Surrey is above sea level, which I'm almost certain that Surrey is above sea level, right? You don't particularly think you're on a mountain when you're walking on the KPU campus. Do you agree? So that's not going to work. Do we agree? Type in agree if you agree. Like, let's say I can demonstrate. Let's say, suppose it were true, right? And I demonstrate that Surrey is the top city. Okay, so let's scratch that. Let's keep moving. What else do I have next? His little legs are touching the mountain. Okay, you can't talk about the mountain being there and his legs touching it, right? When the existence of the mountain and where it begins and ends is itself at stake. So for instance, take number 2, right? Suppose I believe, right? And I'm going to write here, yes, right? Suppose I believe, as opposed to no, I believe that yes, right? So there's a yes or no answer. I go like this. And then obviously someone asks why I believe that yes, Mr. Schmuck 2 is on the mountain, and I answer because his little legs are touching on the mountain. Do we find that satisfying or circular as an answer? Like someone asked me, why do you think Mr. Schmuck 2 is on the mountain? And I say yes, right? I said, yes, he is on the mountain. And I said, because his little legs are touching the mountain. Do we find that satisfying or do we find that problematic? And by problematic, I mean most likely circular, right? Okay, so that's probably not the best answer. And again, we're not too concerned with who said these things, right? We're thinking on our feet, how good can it possibly be on a first thing, right? I feel like those two examples aren't the same, says Babjit. Okay, well, why that feeling, right? So Babjit, look down in your belly. Do you have a mountain detector in there? Like I have eyeballs and so do you, but are you equipped with a mountain detector? And this goes for everyone, I suppose, right? Anybody have a mountain detector as part of their organs? Like I just know when mountains begin and end, right? It's like, we're not equipped with mountain detectors, not that I know of, right? So you've got a feeling, and I kind of have that feeling too, but of course the question is, what the hell is this supposed feeling, and why should anyone take it seriously, right? Yeah, like it's true, agree, right? And Babjit writes, do we need to agree on a definition on a mountain first? Yeah, we kind of do, right? That's probably what, at any rate, it's going to be relevant. We're circling. You see that, Babjit? We're circling on a problem at any rate, right? We need, it's not as clear as we originally thought. At any rate, if we think it's clear, it's not clear why it's clear. This is a big deal. Let me say that again slowly. If you think it's clear, fair enough, man, but it's certainly not clear why it's clear. Does everyone see that difference? Say yes if you see that difference, because it's a huge deal. Because, like, I understand, I don't lack common sense any more than you do, right? Like I'm almost like I don't think I live on a mountain and I live in Surrey and I'm above sea level and it doesn't ever occur to me that I live on a mountain. And I'm pretty confident that if I were to go visit the Rocky Mountains, I know that I went to visit the Rocky Mountains. But it's not clear how I can do all of that, right? And it's also not clear, like, my sense of certainty. My sense of certainty belongs in which Tupperware? So hold on a second, right? Let's go back here for a second. My sense of certainty. Your sense of certainty, does it belong in box 3, box 2, or box 1? Your felt sense of certainty. It's out there. It's part of your mental life. It has to do, it may be sort of a noise around what it means to know, but it's somewhere where there's a subject. Do you agree? Like if we can say the box of metaphysics is a question of what exists apart from knowing knowers, right? Your feelings, like, dude, if your feelings are out there, put them in a bottle. I'd like to buy your orgasms. And I don't mean that liquid in the bottle. Like I'm talking about something else. Feelings. Your feelings aren't out there in that sense, right? They're over here in box number 2, right? So it's not obvious that if you have a feeling about something, that feeling tracks something out there in the world in the same manner that I'm asking the question. I didn't ask, how do you feel about mountains? That's not what I asked. I said, are mountains real, right? So I don't want to report on your feelings. It's not obvious that that's relevant at all. Okay, so I'm scrolling down. Aren't there mountains in the sea? Curtis writes. Okay, cool. We could put this underwater, I suppose. So like could put some blue. I'm not quite sure what it's just a question. It's not necessarily a proposal. Maybe we could say there are mountains in the sea. It would just kind of move the problem underneath the liquid. Curtis, do you agree that we could just say whatever we come up with on the ground, we can move that underneath H2O? Curtis, could you see that? Like we could just say, well, whatever results we obtain on the ground, because let's just not submerge ourselves in water just yet. We could just move that underwater and that'd be another ball of yarn. But right now, let's assume it's submerged under air, right? So, okay, cool. I'm scrolling down. I got to go back in the chat history here. He's in the area that the mountains occupy. This is an answer to the question why Mr. Schmuck 1 is on the mountain? And the answer is he's on the mountain. Ash and everybody else, do we agree that if I say, why is he on the mountain? And if I answer, it's because he's on the area that the mountain occupies, that's almost blatantly circular? Do we agree? Like it's just a little more wordy. I say he's on the area that the mountain occupies is kind of like saying he's on the mountain because he's on the mountain. Do we agree? Like I could reword it fancier. Like you can imagine, you know, he occupies the space currently co-occupied by the mountain, and it'd be like still, right? And that's nothing wrong. It's, yeah, it does, right? And there's no harm in noticing that we're engaging in circles, by the way, because they're hard to catch, especially look, you're typing live, right? It's not easy. It's not a thing to be ashamed of. It is a thing to be ashamed of if we double down on it after we've noticed it, but we're just going to scrutinize what we've said. It depends on the geography. That's kind of hand waving at what exactly does that mean, right? So, okay, suppose I say it depends on the geography. So I'm still scrolling down what folks have said. What the hell could that possibly mean? So, you know, Brandon or anybody else, it depends on the geography. What, isn't that kind of like restating the very question that we're asking? I don't know. Unpack that for me, someone else. So anybody, like it depends on the geography. What could that possibly mean in a way that could be helpful and not just kind of hand wavy? How about this? We said a moment ago that apart from I'm stuck in a simulation and worries to that effect, right? That it depends might be a legitimate, or there might be a legitimate way or respectable way of saying it depends. Could we might want to say partly real? How about this? Because a moment ago, Brandon was saying it depends. He was using that locution. How about, could we say the following? Let me just do a bunch of undos here. Maybe I'll leave schmuck 1 and schmuck 2 here. I feel like Dr. Seuss, right? Thing 1 and thing 2. Maybe I should call them thing 1 and thing 2, but it will kind of lose its edge. Might we say, for instance, that, look, there's I don't know where I'm going to put this cutoff point, but do we agree there's a kind of a cutoff point, or has to be logically a cutoff point where the mountain begins and ends? And the thing I've put in blue, do we agree? Let's take it super step by step. The thing in black exists independently of us, but the thing in blue kind of is up to us. Do we agree? Is that a good way of fleshing that out? The line in black, that's not us. That's reality. The line in blue, that's us. Okay. Now, in that case, this starts to look like this answer, right? Partly real. So there's a part that's real, and there's a part that's just kind of stipulated, right? And the part that's stipulated, maybe that's stipulated by geographers, maybe that's stipulated by you and your mountain detector. It feels as though it's contingent on our experience. We could dress that up in fancy language. That's right. This kind of like what we learn to do, right? We say these things. Agree with massive reservations. Yeah, there's a lot more to be said, Carl, but as a first approximation, maybe that could look like that's a thing. Let's have some more fun. Let me do some undo here. Let me take out Mr. Schmuck. Let's put out Mr. Schmuck. Okay. Let's scale back time. Humans haven't even come up yet. Not only is Mr. Schmuck not there, there are no living things on the earth. All right. How many mountains are in front of us right now? 1 or 2? Let me look here. 1, none, 2 peaks, 1 range. All right. So 1, what's the one word question I'm going to ask after that? Why? 2 peaks, 1 range. Why? Right? So someone champion 1 and say why. Babshit writes down a large natural elevation. Oh, this is a definition. Okay, pause. I love this. Thank you, Babshit. Okay, do we agree that if we wanted to, we could just stipulate a solution to all our problems by mere stipulation? If stipulation was somehow acceptable, we could always, whenever the going gets tough, stipulate an end to the problem. Do we agree? Grab a book, written, or we say it out loud, stipulation, we could totally stipulate. Can we agree? Like that could be a thing. I don't know how satisfying you find that, right? Let's go back here. Let's try stipulation here, right? We have an instance of stipulation right here. Let's go back to the fetus. Okay, fetus. When is a fetus a person? When can you, what's the threshold when you can get an abortion and then you can't? Well, according to Canadian law. Because it has to be a point where, because you know, you can't abort a child the day before you deliver it and put it down a vacuum cleaner. That's not a thing. 23 weeks, 24 weeks. Okay, do we agree that this stipulation can be satisfying if we're interested in legal matters, but do we agree that it's wholly unsatisfying if this is a course in metaphysics? You see that distinction? The stipulation is not going to do any work for us, right? It's like, well, it's a fetus up to this point, and then I drew a line in the sand, and then it's a person up at this point, and you can get an abortion, and eeny, meeny, miny, mo, like 24, whatever. You make up a number, right? You can just make up, look, it's metaphysics, right? And stipulations aren't argumentation. So we could stipulate the mountain as well. Do we agree? Like, we could stipulate the fetus. We could stipulate all the items on this list, right? If we do stipulation, first of all, there's a couple problems. The first problem with stipulation is as follows. So pause, Babjit, and everybody else. There's a couple problems with stipulation. Here's the first problem, right? First of all, different people can stipulate different things, right? So how do we adjudicate between their different stipulations? Stipulations only work if you agree to them. So for instance, we've stipulated right now that we're going to conduct this class in English, and it's because of your agreement that that stipulation proves useful. Mais tout d'un coup, je peux commencer à parler en français, puis moi, je peux stipuler que tout d'un coup, on va parler en français. Ça va être la langue d'instruction, puis personne ne va comprendre, right? The stipulation that we're going to teach, that we're going to conduct this class in English is only good if we agree. The moment there's a disagreement about that stipulation, the overlap no longer works, right? It doesn't do any work for us. And even if it did work, the work would consist in calming us, not in tracking what is real. So let's say, for instance, you say, I have an itch over here in box number 2, right? I have an itch over here and I've scratched my itch. This is a Wittgensteinian expression. What the hell does your scratching or not scratching the itch tell me about what the hell exists? I'm not concerned with this box. I'm concerned with that box. So can we agree that we're going to move stipulation to the side? Right? That the content of the stipulation is just basically, it's like circularity, right? It's just rewording the very thing you're trying to prove again, but like with an exclamation mark, right? Carl writes, if we completely abandon stipulation, what is left, right? Well, at the heart of every well-founded belief is an unfounded belief. Now you're quoting your elders and you think I should be moved by that, but we don't really have a reason to agree with that, right? And that's a belief as well. So look, if it comes to that, right, that's not what we're doing. We're going to keep digging deeper, but stipulation is not they're going to get us where we want. We can also, look, we'll do this when we start reflecting a little bit more on this stuff. We can say, yeah, no worries, man. And again, it's a space where we try out stuff. But we can say stipulation is going to solve all our problems. Okay, so let's go back here. Do we agree? Everyone had begun by saying, everyone with, I think, an exception or two, some trace elements, had said, is a mountain real, not real, partly real? It depends. Everyone had said real. I'm re-asking the question now. Carl, stop typing. I'm re-asking the question about, after maybe 20 minutes of investigation, is a mountain real, not real, partly real, or it depends? Type your answer. Cool. Okay, so the folks who said there are mountains and mountains are real, should I use the singular or the plural when saying mountain or mountains? Is there one mountain here or two mountains? You think those who are committed to the reality, the full reality, unqualified reality, because there's reality, there's not reality, and then there's these qualified realities. If folks who answer this, unqualified real, right? Should I say mountain in the singular or in the plural in describing this situation? Because look, it's a clear question, right? How many mountains are there? Plural. Plural. Okay, so next, what's the one word I'm going to say after real? Why? And what's the one word I'm going to say after plural? Why? Can we see that it's a little more problematic than it at least seems at the first blush? Can we agree on that at any rate? That if I ask you why, it's going to be a lot harder than just say real, right? Like imagine I ask you why and you really have to deliver on that, right? Because that's what the subject matter is, right? Why, right? Why? Not even like, because we said, because why is it that everyone, by the way, let me just backtrack a little bit. Why is it that when I did this a moment ago, We said the blue lines are us, the black line is the world, and we've realized that in order to be able to say plural versus singular, one mountain versus two mountains, we have to count them. For instance, if I say two, there's a beginning and an end there, and we've agreed that the blue lines are us. Why is no one going for a qualified answer, and a lot of folks went for the unqualified answer? Unpack that for me. I'm not quite sure. It seems to me that you can't have it both ways. If you're going to say that the blue line is your contribution, you can't possibly be endorsing the unqualified real. Do we agree that that's not logically consistent? You can't say, I endorse this, but I recognize that the boundary conditions for mountainhood, right, are a contribution of us humans and our conventions. Does anyone see that there's a tension there? Brandon says, if we take away human experience, I think we can say it's partly real, right? Why do we agree, Brandon? Let's refocus the question. Minerals are real, definitely. Are we more satisfied with minerals? Like if I say minerals, because these mountains are presumably made up of minerals, if we're going to say minerals, let's add that to the list, let's say, right? Then the minerals are, in a sense, more real than the mountain. Do we agree? They don't have the problem of the blue lines right now on the screen. Minerals do not have, at least as obviously, any problem of this kind of contamination of convention. They're not contaminated with convention in the same manner that the boundaries of mountains are. Do we agree? So it seems to me, look, you can have it whichever way you want, and you'll still owe me a Y, right? But if you're going to say real, right, you can't possibly nod yes to the idea that there's a kind of hybrid there of the minerals existing and the boundary conditions of when we're going to determine that this clump of minerals constitutes a mountain is a convention. And the conventions go in different directions, by the way. Just to point it out, here's another one. Is this a mountain? Consult your mountain detector, Ariana. I'm glad you're puzzled, because I'm trying to puzzle you, right? That's the goal. Seems like a hill, right? My intuitions say no, right? I'm going to try to make this hopefully just the most annoying mountain. You know, he's like, what are you folks consulting, right? Like, think about it. So here's the thing, right? Hill, mountain, these are words, but words have criteria for application. The criteria for application can't just be rule-based, because they confront a situation in the world, and that world has to have certain features for you to know when to apply it and when not to apply it. So you know the word hill, you know the word mountain, and now you're looking at situations and to know when to apply it. But to determine whether or not to apply it depends on the features of the world. It doesn't depend on the word itself. So for instance, if I show you my cup of coffee, right, and I say, here's my cup of coffee, is it a mountain? You know to say that that's not a mountain. The conditions for application are such that when you gaze out at the thing before you, it fails to satisfy the conditions for application. Well, likewise, if you're going to say this fails or succeeds at meeting the conditions for the application of the word mountain, you got to unpack what the hell it is out there that you're looking at that tells me whether or not the word is applicable or not, right? We should look at the angle. And again, Bhavjit, do we want to just stipulate the angles, or do we want to give a good reason why angles ought to matter? Right? That's the difference. Don't answer that question, right? The slope. And again, we might say, like, if anything has a 30-degree slope, right, we can stipulate, put a problem away. Problem solved, right? It's like, no, right? That would not work. All right. Let's do another one. A hammer. Is a hammer real? Not real? Partly real? It depends. And notice the work you have to do. If you say real, you got to answer why. If you say not real, you have to answer why. If you say partly real, you have to say which parts, and you have to answer why. If you say it depends, you have to say depends on what, and you have to answer why. It depends on what we define as real. It depends on what you define as a hammer. And it depends on whether or not our definitions are, like, you can define what you want, right? It depends. Couldn't many objects be used as a hammer, muddying the definition? Yeah, well, here's one possibility, right? I I get a little thrill every time I use the example of a garlic presser in any context. Here's a garlic presser. I have a garlic presser at home and it's made of metal. I'm super confident that if I needed it to nail a piece of nail into a piece of wood, I could. Is this a hammer? And folks saying confidently no, because I can tell by the response time, right? If this was a psych experiment, right, you could track, how quickly these words come out. Why? And don't beg the question. Don't assume the very thing you're trying to prove. Because of the form. What the hell does that mean? And why should anyone agree? But what the hell does that mean? Because it's not shaped as a hammer, but can be used to hammer the nail in. Colleen, is that a reason to think it is a hammer or a reason to think it's not a hammer? Because as it's worded in the chat bar, I could totally see it spinning this way or that way. Says who then? Like, okay, stop, Colleen. Everyone pause. This is the pause, everyone. Pause. This is brilliant. Okay, so we have a nice result. And again, you're working with me. We're doing philosophy. This is what it looks like, right? I'm going to write something now, right? I'm going to write a conclusion. And the conclusion, as you well know, let me just, therefore, right? I'm going to make it standard convention, put the conclusion at the bottom. Therefore, it is a hammer. That's the conclusion. Now we want our premises, all right? The premises are going to be a premise or premises, right, are going to be this. And I'm going to write out exactly what's there, right? Let me see what was there. Folks have written a lot of stuff. Maybe I lost it. All right. It is not shaped as a hammer, but can be used, right? But means and, by the way, it's a conjunction, right? It can be used as a hammer or to hammer the nail in. Used to hammer the nail in. And I won't put the question marks that were originally in there because those kind of are showing a tilt already. All right, it's not shaped as a hammer. We agree that it's not shaped as a hammer. Premise. Do we nod yes to this premise? Do we agree that it's not shaped as a hammer? Nod yes. We're doing this baby steps. Do you agree to the premise? We're going to do logical argumentation. I'm agreeing as well. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Do we agree that it can be used to hammer the nail in? Nod yes if you agree to this premise. Assent to the premise if you agree to the premise, if you deem the premise true or acceptable. I also am nodding yes. All right. Okay. I need some help now, right? It is not. Don't type anything else. All right. The only difference between the two propositions at the bottom, it is a hammer, and it is not a hammer, is the presence of the negation not. Okay. What conclusion do these two premises, which we jointly assented to, we nodded yes, which conclusion do these premises support? Why? But okay, so notice how, if you say, for instance, that it's not a hammer, right? And Carl, we haven't determined what the conclusion is, so we can't say whether it's valid or invalid. The conclusion is in flux right now, so we can't even bring up that question yet, right? Notice how, if you foreground this, so watch this. I'm going to have some fun now. I'm going to airbrush one of the premises, right? I'm airbrushing a premise right now. Watch out. Pay attention, everyone. Stay focused. I want a fatter airbrush. Here we go. Let me grab myself an airbrush. Okay. Suppose let's not make it about us and our feelings. I say it can be used to hammer the nail in. Which of these two arrows does this current state of the argument support? Does it support arrow 1 or arrow 2? It can be used to hammer the nail in. Therefore, there's no way it's both, Curtis, and it totally supports premise 1. It can be used to hammer the nail in, therefore it's a hammer. Okay, let's backtrack. Now I'm going to use my airbrush, and I'm going to airbrush something else. Hold on, Curtis, hold on, right? It's not shaped as a hammer. And again, I'm going to give myself some color coding, right? Relation of inference 1 or 2. Which one does this premise support? Like again, yeah, 2. Okay, cool. Now let's go backtrack. If we take out the airbrushing, I agree now, Curtis, the both now, right? If I don't remove the airbrushing, it's, the answer is 1.5. It's kind of wobbling in between. But you have to be careful not to remove from view one of the premises you said yes to a moment ago, right? It's like you can't conveniently blurt out of existence or foreground one of these premises to the expense of the other. It's not at all obvious, and I want to thank whoever had written that, right? It's not at all obvious to me that on these premises, it supports a conclusion of it is a hammer versus it's not a hammer. And once again, we're talking about the garlic presser here, just as a reminder, right? Does everyone at least see that? Like, I really want to take this, because look, let's not make this any fancier than it needs to be, because you're starting to lose your hold on hammers and mountains, and it's kind of freaky, and right, we're getting in this weird space. We're opening up a weird space. But look, if I told you it's not shaped like a duck, therefore it's not a duck, you'd have no problem with that argument. If I told you in ordinary context with your ordinary logical, skills, I'd say, it quacks like a duck, and you'd be like, it's a duck, right? Like it's these things are really straightforward. So it's not like you can cherry pick which of these premises you're going to foreground. Ariana writes, can you say I know what a hammer looks like based on past experience? No, you can't say that, Ariana, and here's why. All right, here's the axis of time, right? And I don't mind, by the way, if we just do a couple items on our to-do list. I think we're having fun. And if you're having fun, type in fun in the chat bar. And if you're not having fun, type in no, because I want to gauge your feelings. Because the whole point of this is to learn and have fun. I told you I want to make an exciting first class. Oh, cool. Everyone's having fun because I'm having fun. And I can't, it's really awkward with the chat bar. I can't really tell. So Ariana, here's why. Here's time t now, right? And here's time t, whatever in the past, right? And here's the future, right? If you say that's how I used it in the past, let's say you do this, right? This is how I recognize them in the past. Do we agree, Ariana, that when you were in the past, as far as the past was concerned, that was the now? Do we agree? When you were in that past, that was your now? Yeah, well, you still had to tell me a story for then, how you were figuring out where the hammers are. Do you see that? Like, it's not like you were off the hook, and you can't keep saying, well, it's because that's how I use it in the past. Well, I'll do the same moves. I mean, that's the now. Like, the now is tomorrow's past, right? It's not like you can invoke the fact that, exactly. So it's like, no, you can't do that. It just moves the problem away. Just like if you say, well, I'm going to stipulate it, that just moves the problem away, because your stipulation is going to have a content, and you're going to want me to subscribe to your stipulation, and you're going to need to give me conditions of application. And those three things basically smuggle in the metaphysical commitments without justifying them. So here's the thing that's really hard about metaphysics. This is why it really sucks. And if you've ever met a full-on professional metaphysicians, they're kind of arrogant because it is the inescapable branch of philosophy. Now, if you think philosophy is inescapable, metaphysics is ultra inescapable. There's no way for you to get away from it. Every time you get away from it, it swings by. So you go, well, no, I'm just going to linguistically stipulate X, Y, Z. I just told you how that's not going to work. You're just basically going to do metaphysics, but badly. Because you're going to stipulate something. That stipulation is going to have a content, and that content is going to dictate conditions of application. And then when I confront instances in the world, you'll have to tell me whether or not it applies or fails to apply. And all that's going to be incumbent upon what you think is out there that we're in front of. Yeah. I still don't understand what's wrong with stipulation. All right, cool. All right. I aspire to be, it's a really neat branch. It's a really neat branch. All right. I still don't see what's wrong with stipulation. All right. Here, Babjit, let's go for it. I'm going to write something. I stipulate that Babjit is an avocado. Babjit, is this proposition true? Like Babjit is an avocado. Is that true? I stipulate that Babjit is an avocado. Babjit, are you there by an avocado? Because I love avocado toast. Just be warned before you answer. I love avocado toast. And I got a minivan I can squash you. Who the hell cares that it's accepted or not accepted? We're not asking, is this linguistics or is this metaphysics? Wrong course, right? You see that, Bevjit? What the fact, okay, what the fact, I like that. I can say WTF, what the fact? All right, who cares that something is commonly accepted? Right? What does that, okay, X is commonly accepted, therefore X is real. Valid or invalid argument? X is commonly accepted, therefore X is real. X is commonly accepted, let's say CA, right? Therefore, X exists. Valid or invalid inference? The flat earth was once commonly accepted. Yeah, you see what's wrong, Bevjit? Yeah, and there's no problem with that, Bevjit, right? I mean, and this goes for everybody else, right? We're all having fun and figuring stuff out. And for those of you new to my teaching style, mistakes are how we stumble our way closer to the truth, right? It's like, what the hell do we know? Like, this is what we do. This is what it is to do philosophy. It's no big deal, right? No one's keeping score. It's all cool. All right. So, okay, so Hammer, we had the situation, I erased it, with the these premises. But do we see that the idea of a hammer seems to rest? Let me just pause on talk about hammer for just a second. Hammers are individuated, to use a technical term. We pick out hammers in part of a variety of things. But one of the things that picks out hammers is their function. There are wooden hammers and there are metal hammers, and it doesn't matter whether it's copper or whether it's aluminum or whether it's, you know, they can have different, like go to the, whatever, what's the store, like Canadian Tire. They have different hammers. Now, you can go check it out. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you go to Canadian Tire, right, there's not probably on the rack, apart from those that are made by the same company, I'm going to tell you right now, there's not a single hammer that's exactly the same shape, right? And moreover, they're probably made of different materials. So you want to use an Aristotelian form matter distinction? They're probably all going to be different shapes, right? And they're probably all going to be different matter. Yet we confidently say that all of them are hammers because they all fulfill a certain function. But functions, if you've done any philosophy of mind, are multiply realizable. Different things can satisfy the same function. Like a chair holds up a person. Lots of things can hold up a person, right? And functions don't seem to exist in the world as obviously, or at any rate, if they exist in the world, they roam over instances, right? Like, why was I able to replace the previous prof? Because the prof fulfilled a function. Like those of you who took metaphysics with me when I took over for Brian, right? How can I still be the prof if I'm not Brian? Right? The matter has been completely altered. The form also. I'm telling you, there's not a single thing about form of, let's say, Brian and I that's identical. Teaching is a function. Mark is a function. Brian was a function. At least in that capacity, I replaced the function and you can swap. And now it's not obvious to me at all, it seems. If you have, and by saying it's not obvious doesn't mean it's not the case. It means it's not obvious. It really just means that. Like work needs to be done to justify that. My garlic presser, right, can't qualify. Like my garlic presser is not made of the same stuff. Yes, agreed. It doesn't have the same shape. Yes, agreed. But we ask, can it fulfill the function? Function? Yes. Function? Yes. Function? Yes. Function? Yes. And the only difference is this was the intended function, the intended function, the intended function, and this is the non-intended function. And then, of course, the question becomes, why the hell is the difference between an intended function and a non-intended function going to bring about something into existence or not bringing it into about? Isn't that a bit weird? Does everyone see that? Type in clear if that's clearer. And no if it isn't. Like I'm hoping that just kind of brought it up, right? Reliability might be, but then why matter, right? Like, why should that matter decisively about what exists? You see, reliability could totally be something that's relevant if I'm building a house. I don't see that it's relevant for metaphysics. Why would reliability be such a thing? It's like, how about this? Carl, do you exist? Well, it depends. Do I find you attractive? It's like, well, there's moments when attractiveness makes a difference. Like if I'm picking out a mate, but even the people I don't find attractive exist. Like if I can't say, well, they're not attractive, therefore they don't exist. Well, let's say it's a bad hammer. We can all agree, let's say, we can rank the hammers. This is the best one, the second best one, the third best one. And if you're stuck on a desert island and you can't get options 1, 2, and 3, then maybe you can use your garlic presser. Although why would you be on a desert island with a garlic presser? That's an interesting question. But still, we can all agree that it's preferable to pick the other ones because it's not as reliable, but it doesn't make it any less of a hammer insofar as hammers are individuated by their function, not by their matter, not by their form, right? And this is some heavy-duty philosophy stuff here. I'm talking pretty fast, and I'm saying a lot of heavy-duty stuff, right? So let's go back here. Is a hammer real, not real, partly real? It depends. I want to get a minimal sense for you before we wrap this up. Do we agree that it's not as obvious as it first seemed? That's all I want to do today. Just to show you how metaphysics could be a thing. That's all I want you to see today. That's all the point of that was. Like, it's just a little more, like it's not as obvious as it seems, right? Because like what exists? I don't have to take a course in that, right? And there are times when these differences make a difference, you know, the whole abortion debate being one, right? There are times when these differences make all the difference. Like, does God exist? Man, that makes a hell of a difference, right? There are times when all of these things make a ton of difference, right? And you can laugh at these, by the way. We can have a fun and laugh at these. And we say, this is easy targets, right? Like ectoplasm, your aura, you know, UFOs and God. And, you know, if you believe in God, pick other people's gods and they sound really stupid, right? It's like, ha, ha, ha. You know, I believe in the Christian God, but clearly Ganesh is stupid. It's like, oh, wow. You know, it's like, no, you know, and all of these items on our list, all of them, every single one, a hammer, your best friend, the number 5, yesterday, right? What would you do for the song? Right, Ariana. So Ariana, let's go for that, right? So Ariana, imagine your favorite song. You've heard it sung by different people, yes or no? Your favorite song, right? There's covers, right? Yes or no? All right. Like, what if the sound waves of your song, of your favorite song, right? The sound waves of your favorite song are like, you know, each sound wave is completely different, let's say, on closer scrutiny, right? Moreover, they're not just different, they're literally distinct things. This happened at this time and this happened at that time. And you're going to say, well, are there 2 songs here or 1? Like, what makes this the same song? Like, if Celine Dion sings some Guns N' Roses, how is that the same song? Like November Rain or something. There's not a single thing about Celine Dion's rendition of a Guns N' Roses song that even remotely approaches Axl Rose's version. And we're going to say, well, it's the same song. It's, look, listen, it's, listen, you know, and appeal to your senses. Listen, it's November Rain. It's like, do you see that, Ariana? How that could become problematic? Like, it's just not obvious, right? Yeah, and couldn't I just say that the song is just wind hitting your eardrum? Songs don't exist, just wind hitting your eardrums? Like, that's like, where's the song? Show me the song. Where's the song? And you show me wind. I didn't ask for wind. I asked for a song. And you keep giving me more wind. Oh, la, la, la. And it's like, you're modulating more wind. I didn't ask you whether wind exists. I asked you whether the song exists. I agree that wind exists. Right? It's like, it's not obvious, not obvious. So all of those things, and Ariana and everybody else, the song stuff, I just a little dipped our little toe in it. Did you see that? Does that mess you up a little bit also for the song? Because it mess you up for all this stuff, right? Like that's the idea. And what am I doing essentially? Like, I'm just saying our intuitions are just that. They're intuitions, but they're not a reliable guide to figuring out the nature of reality. It's like, why would they be? Right? Why would they be? We can be wrong about a bunch of stuff. What did I say earlier? I said philosophy just is the systematic realization that we're not gods. Well, bite down real hard on that. It's like, since we're not gods, the fact that we feel strongly about something only means that we feel strongly about something. It doesn't give us a special access to the nature of reality itself. right? And that doesn't mean we can't know reality, but it means you certainly can't know it without having done the work. And metaphysics is the subject that does it.